the Move Again. I'm here with my man,
David. Yo.
Going on, man. So we got a special review today for everybody here.
We sure do.
We're doing a heavy spoiler review for everybody who has not seen the show, which is Amazon Prime's brand new series, The Boys, which is based on the Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson's comic book story. So before we get into the review, let's go ahead and just start rolling the trailer real quick.
People love superheroes. They swoop out of the sky and save the day. People love that cozy feeling that superheroes give them. I can't stop. I can't stop. I can't stop. I can't stop. Robin!
My deepest condolences to Robin's family. She just stepped in the middle of the street. I couldn't.
She was a half step off the fucking curb.
Oh, now, come on, Huey. Just don't get upset.
Soups lose hundreds of people each year. It's a collateral damage. It's fucking diabolical.
They're all like that? All of them?
Yeah. Pardon my French, fuck those fuckers. I got the boys together. Join us.
To do what?
Spank the bastards. For Robin.
I'm in.
Lacing the shoes, I'm on the move. I got so much to prove.
It's suicide to go after the Soups.
We can use help stuffing them.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm just having a bad day. It's a work thing. I'm supposed to be this hero idol symbol, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
She could help us.
She's a soup, just like the rest of them.
You're wrong about her.
Just remember who your friends and who your enemies are.
They just declared war.
You can't do this. You don't have the fight. You never have.
This kid is full of surprises. Well.
It's not what it looks like.
I thought we had an understanding.
I know you're trying to be tough, but
We're superheroes.
who are you?
Okay. So, on with the series here. Tell me your thoughts.
I loved it. Now, I know we discussed it a little bit beforehand. I say, hey, you gotta watch this.
Yeah.
And you're like, we gotta do a review.
Yeah.
And I did mention the comic book to you a little bit. I knew you weren't like quite aware of the comic book or whatever. I read it somewhat when it first started. And then later on, I got bits and pieces of it. I actually got caught wind of it when I was reading Wizard magazine with a bunch of, and other people had mentioned it because of Preacher. So I got into it. And then I went back and reread it so we can do the review and do some comparison.
Yeah.
But, man, what a ride.
Yeah, so you mentioned something about the show, but the comic book Preacher, which is another Garth Ennis comic book as well, too, which is also made into a TV show for AMC, being produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who are also producing this show as well, too. So anything they touch with relation to Garth Ennis property here, they've turned into gold, because this show, I think, I'm going to say it, and I think it's possibly the greatest superhero show I've ever seen in my entire life. It is. I think it was that good. You mentioned that you introduced me. Well, you sent me the link for me to read the comic book here. So I started reading the comic book as I was watching the show for the last couple of days, and in comparison to what we're reading in the comic book and what we're seeing in the show, it's almost literally night and day, because you have a lot of things that are in the comic books that are virtually not in the TV series at all whatsoever. You get kind of like a conglomeration of different characters molded into one, to form a different narrative for the just to fit the show, which I think worked for the best here. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the details later on with as we're doing the review here. But I don't think I have anything negative to say about the show. And quite frankly, I take that back. The only negative thing I can say is that season 2 needs to hurry its hats up, because this show was so fucking good. Like, it was so good, literally from the first episode. And it's only 8 episodes, which I thought might be a little too short considering how many issues are there, like 72 issues or something like that from the comic books? Right, okay. So I thought, okay, well, maybe they might do like the first 8 issues or something like that. It's almost like non-existent because they're forming their own narrative there. But I mean,
funny that you mentioned that. Once you get to a certain part or a certain arc, you kind of see like, oh, they grasp some stuff from different story arcs for this, and they're kind of building up to certain story arcs, especially with the ending, which we will get to, which was just out of left field.
Oh my god, I was so like, I was literally taken aback because, okay, well, we'll get into that as well too. But so let's focus on like the main plot of the story here. So, which is essentially what the plot of the comic book is as well too. We have what's his name, Huey, who is the eyes and ears for the audience, if you will, being introduced to this. Well, he's more or less being introduced to the super world. I think that's what they refer to them in the comics, and as well as in the show, they refer to as supers.
The soups, yeah. Right. But like, before we get some groundwork, in this world, this is a reality where superheroes are real,
right?
To the point where you get like a job as a superhero in a sense. You get sponsorship,
right,
to become a superhero and to kind of work with the help of not really government official or government issue, but more of a corporate sense,
right?
Some people like it, some people don't, and there's a lot of collateral damage.
Right.
Hence, this is where Huey steps in.
Right. So Huey's storyline starts off where he's with his girlfriend, Robin, I think, and him and her. You can tell they've had like a really close relationship, and you right off the bat you can see that he is pretty much like an insecure guy. He was in the first episode. He wanted to ask his boss for a raise because he'd been there for like 5 years or whatever it was at some sort of like Radio Shack type store, and didn't have the balls to do it. His girlfriend's encouraging him to do this, and that she wants to move in with him after she gets out of college. So they already had like their future somewhat planned out. And then all of a sudden, as he's talking to her about Billy Joel and whoever else he's a fan of, as far as music is concerned, you just see like a splash of blood that just covers him, and then you see all the blood splatter across the street. And then we're introduced to A-Train, played by the actor Jesse T. Usher. He's the guy that was who played Will Smith's son in Independence Day Resurgence. And he was also in the last Shaft film, too, that just came out recently with Samuel L. Jackson, where he played his son. So, go on.
There. Fantastic casting. Fantastic casting.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I saw his name in the casting there, because I did a little bit of research before I saw the first episode, I didn't think his role, his acting in Independence Day Resurgence was terrible, but I wasn't like really impressed. He doesn't have that dramatic chops that I think he could pull off for a show like. I mean, I didn't even know what the show was going to be about, to be honest. But I figured that if it's going to be a superhero show, maybe he can pull off something that might be, somewhat passable. But man, he blew me away right off the bat. And as you see the progression of that character and that arc starting to form, holy shit, give that guy a really good part. He can really become something, because, like I said, his introduction, we're seeing that he's runs into a civilian, runs away pretty much, and then we kind of see in the next scene or two that Vought, that's the name of the corporation that is controlling all the superheroes, or that are pretty much hiring these superheroes, right? They send pretty much. So they send out the lawyers out to Huey's house, or apartment rather, and they're telling him, "Hey, we're willing to make you an offer," and it was like something like $45,000, but you need to sign an NDA. Yeah, you'll be all right there.
Yeah.
All right. So we're seeing that, and then we're also introduced, which is a little something I think most people may not know. Simon Pegg's in the show. Now, Simon Pegg, who is actually the inspiration visually for the character of Huey in the comic book, and I think I read somewhere a while ago where there was talks, I think like a couple of years ago, of them adapting The Boys into a TV show. This is before Amazon Prime became like a big time streaming service. But and I guess the creators were a little concerned that since they didn't get his permission to use his likeness for the character, Simon Pegg was cool enough to say, "This is fantastic." Sure, he even wrote like a foreword or something in the.
You did.
He did, right? Okay, so he wrote something to pretty much like promote the book, and then there were talks of possibly casting him. This was like over 10 years ago when the first issue came out. I think it came out in 2006, if I'm not mistaken, and then ended in 2012, I think. So there was talks of having him play that character, but he got too old for the part. So and kind of like the wink to the audience, they cast him as the father of Huey in the series, which you never see. As far as I can remember reading in the comics, you don't see Huey's father at all whatsoever, right? Yeah, so I thought that was a nice little addition to kind of give a little wink to his character for the comic book readers who were aware of the background there. So
it was really cool to kind of see him, because as I was reading the comic, I saw Simon Pegg. I was hearing Simon Pegg.
And in the comics, he's a Scottishman.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really kind of cool to see, and then like I said, going back to kind of correct myself, like, reading it online and, going through all, wizards.com, and then going through all the, the comic book sites and stuff like that. There were hints about, possible this, possible that. So it's kind of cool to kind of like who the future casting for this. So, going through and seeing who they had so far was fantastic. But yeah, so pretty much going back to Huey ends up losing his girlfriend.
Yep.
Due to collateral damage from A-Train. And he's been grieving for quite some time until somebody comes into his doorstep, or at his job, actually.
Yeah.
Who finds out about what happened to him and his girlfriend. And starts talking, and they're like, "Hey, man, like, you want some payback? I can help you out, in a sense."
And we're talking here with Carl Urban's Butcher, right? Who is
Billy Butcher.
Yeah.
Amazingly played.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I didn't when I started reading the comic series, in my mind the image of Butcher was like what you see in the comics, this big, broad, like thick Cockney type of guy, because that's his character in the comics. So not knowing the character himself until I saw the show and then started reading the comics, I can visualize someone like I could think of an actor like a Jason Statham, just like juiced up with black hair. That's how I pictured him. But then having seen Carl Urban play this character, I was like, there's nobody else that I can think of right now other than Carl Urban playing this guy, because he does him justice. I mean, he's like right in the middle as far as like the realistic look of the character is concerned. So yeah, but you were saying though he's brought into the show as a gateway for Huey to get revenge on the killer of his girlfriend. So, I mean, what were your thoughts when you first saw Urban coming in and having, because I've taken you've read a little bit of the comic series prior to watching the show, right? When you saw that, what was the first thing that went through your mind having seen that image?
Because I had somebody else in mind, from Vinny. I'm trying to remember his name. Because we had this conversation prior, where I had somebody else in mind, because he's known for being, in gangster movies, and he was in Lock, Stock, Smoking Barrels. So, he, very Guy Ritchie-esque. That's kind of like the feeling I got when I was reading the Butcher.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're getting at. Okay.
So kind of like, so I was like, all right, this is kind of like the feel I had for it. And at first I was like, I don't know. I didn't quite see Carl in the role, but once I saw he walks and he just steals the scene.
Yeah.
And he plays that character so well, like just that brutality, the kind of nice asshole-ishness of him that comes out, because like you can tell he cares about Huey, but at the same time he's kind of like he's using Huey.
Yeah.
And it shows very well with the story arc of the show.
Yeah, I think one thing you brought up a good point that you said that he cares about Huey. At least in the comics, they show that in there that he's actually looking out for Huey up to a point because he realizes that Huey is just like lonesome type of down and out type of character. He's really secure with himself and doesn't have enough confidence up to stand up for himself. And here comes this character who comes in and gives him a little bit of that edge to say, you know what, you can do this. And then you want to do this here, so why hold back? This character is more or less has a kind of his agenda is still the same as it is in the comics, but the interpretation how he's using Huey for his for all intents and purposes for his own revenge story here, because I think a lot of people who've seen the show will realize that there's the reason why Butcher's out there to go after the Supes is because he believes that Homelander, who is essentially Superman in this series here and in the comics as well too, has raped and killed his wife. So that's his whole purpose behind this mission here, and he's getting someone else like himself to use him to be able to get to have access to these heroes by talking to the lawyers and getting and even convinces them to go into the corporate office where they have their meetings at, because he knew that he would get access to that. Therefore, he can plant a microphone or something or wire, whatever it is, to hear what they're saying, so he knows what their next moves are and so on. So the motivations are clearly there, but the direction for those motivations are slightly different for the show here. So, I mean, when you, there's one of the characters that also sticks out for me, like I told you before, is Homelander. I want to talk about him real quick because that guy, Carl Urban steals the show, don't get me wrong, but Homelander, they plays him, I think his name is, if I'm not mistaken here, Anthony Starr, who is a New Zealand actor just like Urban himself. That guy steals the entire show. And that view of a character like Superman, if Superman was an insecure, complete asshole and very, what's the word, sociopathic, is that the right word for the character like this? If he was really like that, can you imagine like the damage he's able to cause if he just flat out didn't care for anybody in the world? And clearly you see that throughout the show, and throughout all the different episodes you see him in. Like this is the version of Brightburn that should have been, and instead we kind of got something else with Brightburn, where he's like Superman's just born evil, but in this case Superman was grown up with no stronghold, no foundation, and clearly he sees people are using him, but he also knows he has the advantage. Therefore, he's kind of following the system to help the system, but to make himself feel better about it. So it's a weird dichotomy of a two different aspects of characters. But I mean, what's your thought on that? Because that guy is by far the it could have been called Homelander, and it would have been just as good.
It was great. Like as soon as he stepped on screen, you knew you were up to something. Because like, even then, like that first scene where you kind of shows up, there's that hint. It's there. Like it caught my attention. I'm like, even though I read the comic book, I knew what I was getting into. The scene where he just kind of comes in, after the attempted heist, and kind of just burns the guy's hand onto the gun.
Yeah.
That
ripped the guy's heart out too at one of those episodes as well.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
But like you could kind of see that there's something off with this guy. Like you could tell, like the way he played it, like you tell, like he wasn't as genuine. He's like, yeah, sure, guys, come on, take a selfie. Like there was some way that the way that he kind of said it, pulled it off. It's just okay. This is somebody you need to watch out for.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as the build-up went on throughout the series, you started just kind of falling more and more apart to the point at the end where it's kind of like it just that crescendo at the end where it just kind of just really left you hanging. Like, wow. Like,
well, so we're talking about the character here, and I was so let's talk about Vought, the company that is essentially hiring these heroes. And one thing that I don't think they with the show didn't delve into too much was the fact that the Seven. I'm sorry. They did get into this about the Seven, which are the main superheroes, the Justice League, for this show here, and for the comic book as well too. And then you also have these little side groups as well too. Like what was the one that popped out? What was that?
Kicks is one.
Say that name again. I couldn't hear you.
Teenage Kicks was
That's
one.
right. Thank you. Yeah. You're right. So they didn't really delve too much into that. So you don't unless you paid attention to the show, you don't get that feel like there's other different groups of heroes that are trying to form their own team, but they all want to eventually join the Seven because they know they're going to be taken care of.
Like the big leagues. Yeah, it's the big leagues. And it's kind of what it felt like. I said, it's very corporate oriented. And it's funny that you said that because, again, this is all spoilerific. Because Vought came up this vibe as they're like the company that hires and contracts out superheroes and they kind of like monopolize on the whole superhero genre. Yeah. And then use that to make more money. So there's like movies for different superheroes and stuff like that. But they also the kind of creative behind the superheroes. As you go, I watch the series, you kind of see like, oh, there's a difference between how the superheroes kind of and some of the superheroes see themselves and how they set up to kind of become a superhero. Then they finally realize a lot of stuff is behind the scenes, done and made and controlled by Vought because they're the ones like, oh, well, you save this guy, all right, do this, do that. It's kind of directed out. Yeah. In a sense. And it kind of sets up for like what the seven really were. Now, speaking of the Seven, you had A-Train, which is like the speedster character. You had the Deep, which was kind of like your Aquaman character. Right. Lamplighter, who is kind of heavily hinted to be kind of like a Green Lantern character. You have see him
at all in the show.
No, you don't. But the way that they describe him and talk about him, I kind of hinted that he was kind of like a Green Lantern. Yeah. And then you have
Starlight,
Tech Knight, who's mentioned one or a couple of times, but he hasn't really was never shown. Right. Then you have a Black Noir, who was kind of like a Snake Eyes character, very Snake Eyes.
He was. You don't see him do anything in the show at all. He's always just there in the background, and then he kind of has like one or two funny moments. But aside from that, he really didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, he's down a couple times. You saw like how vicious he could be in combat. Because there's a scene where he kind of comes in contact with the female, and they go head on. He ends up, taking her out, but she comes back. But yeah, you could tell that he has been, he's known for being. And then you have, of course, you have Homelander, who's like the Superman, Captain America. Yeah. Oh, I saw. I'm not gonna lie, that's not how I saw them. If you remember the old Dexter's Laboratory cartoon, where it's like Major Glory, that's how I saw them. Entire time, like a twisted Major Glory, which I thought was hilarious.
We also have Queen Maeve or Maeve.
Queen Maeve, kind of like your
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, pretty much. Yeah. And then you had a newcomer, Starlight, who was kind of like
kind of like a Jubilee.
Yes. Also, I was also thinking Starlight, Dazzler, kind of mix like X-Men. So it's kind of a weird mix of like different characters, amalgamations of different characters. But I enjoyed her, like kind of small town upbringing. The kind of like the true kind of Superman origins. She's a small town upbringing. Wanted to be a superhero for the right reasons, and then she gets into the Seven, and she realizes it's not as cracked up as it is to be. It's It's very dark. It's not as flashy and it's not as fulfilling as she thought it was. And I actually really enjoyed her seeing that coming into realization of that.
Yeah, and then you mentioned when she first got over to Vought, when she officially got picked out of thousands of other applicants to become part of the Seven, because what was the name of the character? Lamplighter? Is that right?
Lamplighter has died or out of commission, retired, they say.
Right. So she comes over and takes his spot, and then you get introduced to the Deep, played by Chase Crawford, I believe is his name. Chase Crawford, who plays the Deep, and essentially he's Aquaman. And imagine if Aquaman was a complete jerk. So imagine Jason Momoa being as big and as charismatic as he is, but he's using it for all the wrong reasons. This guy did that perfectly, I thought. And then you see like
to me it was like if Ryan Reynolds and what's that guy's name? It's another comedian. Played Aquaman. Like it's kind of how it came off to me.
So Ryan Reynolds and another comedian. Which one are you talking about?
I'm trying to remember his name.
Who's he in?
Not that much.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if I know the character that other comedian is, I can probably see that. But I can see the Ryan Reynolds aspect of it there too. But I mean, that guy, I'm sorry, that character, the Deep. Well, like I was saying, he pretty much like lures Starlight in to make her feel at home, and then she's like, "I had a crush on you, and you were my favorite." And he's like, "Really?" And the first thing you see, as soon as she says that, he's got his pants pulled down, and you literally get an ass shot. He's like jerking off, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, you said you had a crush on me, so I figured, let's go."
Just take it straight panel from the comic. It's like panel to panel.
But what's the main difference from
even
the
down to like the underwear tan?
Yeah, that was like, I did notice that too. I have to admit, but what was the big difference that's in the show? That was in the comics. That was not in the show. There's two other people there.
Yes, two other people there. It was A-Train was there, and
was it A-Train?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason I thought it was Night Noir? I okay. And then Homelander.
Yeah, Homelander was the one who actually was the one who
welcomed her, right?
Yeah, and then the Deep. No, it wasn't. It was A-Train.
A-Train and Night Noir. It was those three in the comics.
Oh. So I liked how they kind of changed it around.
Yeah.
Because you already had that kind of side story with Homelander.
Yeah.
And then the comic could kind of see why they did it to set it up to kind of see how grimy he was. But this is kind of show that it was kind of all around, and it was really kind of good setup for how they're going to kind of take care of how the seven kind of took care of each other, quote unquote, and covered stuff up, and how Vought was involved as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. I want to bring up too is that Vought, you mentioned, you kind of hinted at before, where they were pretty much picking out all the missions for all the heroes. They were saying like, we're going to save this crew of seamen that are out in the docks who are bringing in products or whatever. If you save them, this will look good on us. If we can get a crew out in time to record you guys through saving these guys, and it'll bring good publicity for us here. So we thought not only do we save this company a lot of money, but we'll probably work our way through some of the people who are also connected with this company to be able to get some contracts that we need. And the big one that they wanted here was a government contract to infiltrate the supers into the military, and they were against doing that. At least the government is, because they don't want superheroes coming in and saving the world, because we don't really need them. And one thing that I noticed too about the show is that apparently these superheroes were never really ever trained to actually really harness their skills as far as like fighting is concerned. I mean, they knew how to use their powers, but there was really no sense of like legit training that came with that. It was almost as if though they were just signed up and said, "Do this. You can beat them anyways because you're stronger than them. So you have no reason for us to train you." Because when it came to,
it's kind of like what some of the show is kind of attacking about too. It's kind of like these supers just don't have training. It's just a bunch of guys in spandex who think they can and then go out causing more trouble. That's kind of what the issue and kind of the backstory was with the argument that Butcher had.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting kind of off track because kind of going to different things. Because like the storyline pretty much is superheroes are real in this world, and their interaction between them and normal people, and pretty much the collateral damage involved. With that being said, Huey gets introduced to Billy Butcher.
Right.
And Butcher's trying to kind of help him, in a sense, get back at what happened with him and his girlfriend. And in the meantime, Butcher has to constantly bring in his old group of people, because he used to work with another group of people bringing down supers for somebody else, which you'll find out later on in the season, literally to almost the second to last episode, who brought them together. But he eventually leads them into Frenchie first. Introducing Frenchie, which is a French weapons expert, an explosive expert, and among other things. And then you meet Mother's Milk, which is kind of like a Luke Cage kind of character, the comic books, anyways. But excellently cast. They did a wonderful job casting.
Yeah, they cast Laz Alonso for the part of Mother's Milk, and the actor that played Frenchie, his name is Timur Capone, who's actually Israeli in real life. So the fact that he was able to pull off a French accent, I thought was kind of amazing. But
Great job. So after that, it's kind of like it was kind of also origin stories for the boys in a way, and then kind of like a setup for why they got together. And they kind of go into more backstory until the last member, the female, Kimiko,
as the woman. They first introduced her as the woman.
or the female. Yeah, that's not what she is in the comics.
Oh yeah, yes, right. Yeah, you're right.
And then they found out her real name is actually Kimiko, and they go into more backstory with her and what happened with her, and which sets up that the entire time everyone's understanding that Supes are born every day or born into society, and then you'll find out that there's like a whole slew, not just like the conspiracy behind Vought and the Seven and how grimy the Seven are, but it really the conspiracy went deeper than that.
Yeah.
And that when the boys find out at the end, it kind of puts them in danger.
What did they find out?
That, and as you mentioned earlier, is that the government contracting was that Vought was trying to get Supes into the military to get that government contract money.
Right.
You know, if you have Supes out there, Supes are pretty much a commodity and to be used as a form of warfare. You have nukes, you have guns and tanks. All that stuff becomes obsolete when you have superheroes at the helm. Why waste all the money? We can just use the money from contract and set out a superhero.
Right.
Well, there's no reason to. Eventually, you find out that Vought has actually been creating superheroes.
Right.
And the superheroes are actually not born. They're actually created in a lab. Yep. And they're given, and this is the whole point, the whole storyline was this compound V.
Yep.
That the Vought had created to kind of create supers at a young age and inject people with.
Yeah, and we kind of get that later on in the story with Starlight, who confronts her mother about that as well too. And we come to find out that not only was Homelander pretty much raised in the lab, but we don't know anything else outside of that. That he was raised in a lab, and he apparently didn't have any personal touch in his life where he has someone to really be close to. He was pretty much just and he was pretty much just used as an object, as a test object to
a subject. Yeah,
he's the subject of this experiment they're trying to do, and it sounded like to me that he was the first of this superhero creation. Exactly, and then you figure out that with Starlight, who confronts her mother about that because Huey had told her about that, and that's a whole different story between those two. But she finds out through Huey that she was given Compound V to help her become this superhero that she is now, and she didn't believe and confronts her mother about it. And her mother pretty much confesses to her, "Well, we were offered X amount of money. We were offered to have you become this superhero." With the dreams and possibility of what that you could be something special. And her mother and her family are religious people as well too. So she was saying that God is going to be blessing you with all this sort of stuff. And then we also find out, according to her mother, that she wasn't even paid to do this. They would just pay. All they did was cover the hospital bills, and you raise her. And so she was pretty much raised to be taking like Taekwondo classes, dancing classes, all this other stuff that she had to do. To harness her skills and her powers, and then she was pretty much almost like forced or manipulated into wanting to join the Seven. And she got the opportunity. Yeah, and she got that opportunity. All her dreams are going to come true. Therefore, her mother's going to be taken care of, and all that kind of stuff. And it turned out to be complete BS as soon as she found out like how these guys really are behind the scenes. That they're not these lovable and trustworthy characters. In fact, they're the total opposite, and they're just selling an image there. So we get into that, and then I also wanted to get into with Bill the Butcher's background story too, which is also a very main piece of the plot here, which is the fact that I mentioned before that Homelander he's accusing Homelander of raping and killing his wife, and but they've never found her body. So people think she's dead, but no one's ever found her body, and that's his motivation to want to kill Homelander. But again, Homelander is Superman. How can you destroy something that can't be destroyed? There is no such thing as kryptonite, at least so far with this show here, that shows that he's vulnerable to something. What did you think of that?
Because they kind of set that up. Like the first few episodes was amazingly done. Yeah. But like, well, how are you going to take care of a super? Well, that was the whole point that this group got together was to find out weaknesses of supers and get rid of them if need be. It was kind of like a countermeasure to supers if supers had got bad.
Right.
We told her one day they had a bad mission where a couple kids were and other people were harmed because of Lamplighter. As the Lamplighter guy, they somehow got rid of Lamplighter. Lamplighter was all kind of attacked other people, so they were disbanded. So that's kind of why some of Butcher's backstory is like he was in a group that was created to kind of go against Supes in case it was necessary.
Yeah.
So Huey gets thrown into this, and the way he gets thrown in is that he gets involved, plants the bug. He ends up getting into a scuffle with Translucent, who's kind of like the Invisible Man.
Yeah, and he's got like this like diamond skin when he turns invisible, so he's impenetrable pretty much. Mm-hmm. And they kept him up in a cage for like, I don't know, 3, 4, like 2 days, I think it was, right? And they couldn't find any ways to kill him.
Because you can't kill him.
Until Frenchie saw something on TV with a turtle. He's like, okay, he's got a hard shell on the outside. You can't crack that shell, but he's got to be soft on the inside. How can we get to there? And they decided to take him out by knocking him out, which they did. And they ended up sticking like C4 up his ass because they realized that's the only way we can take him out. Mm-hmm. And that pretty much was like the catalyst of them figuring out that some of these superheroes do have weaknesses. We just got to find out, like you mentioned, they had to find out what they were. And then shit hit the fans at that point. That was pretty much like the introduction of like their first mission. It just goes haywire. But God, that was so awesome though, because when you have Homelander there as well too in that whole episode as well. And that was pretty much the turning point for Huey, who was this really soft-spoken, very insecure, very he was pretty much like a mat for everybody to walk all over here. And that point right there of the episode where he confronts Translucent, like, don't walk out of here or I'm going to press this button. He's like, no, you won't. And then he ends up pressing the button and just blows him to shit. So now they have to clean up all these pieces, and Butcher ends up handling that, figured, okay, now we can send a message to the supers here that we can take you down. And they made it, and it certainly got their attention, as you see how they do that in the show. But one thing I wanted to bring up here too was the fact that we have all these different social commentaries that are very prevalent in the show, especially the way things are right now. That's one of the reasons why I love the show, not because of just the commentaries that they're making here, but the fact that you're seeing how the system, if you will, is manipulating to present something that's not actually there and make it seem like it's like that, and people are just eating it up and believing it, hanging on to their every word, and not wanting to believe that there's no way these characters are capable of being bad people. One of the more important scenes, which is one of the saddest sequences in the show, I think you know what part I'm talking about here, was where this was an opportunity for Vought to show the military that, you need us here to help you guys out. And they had to save an airplane that had hostage that had terrorists in the plane. Basically, it's kind of 9/11ish, and we're going to have the superheroes come up there. We have Homelander and Queen Maeve. Is that how you pronounce her name? I always forget how you pronounce her name. Queen Maeve. So they're breaking into the plane, and they stop the terrorists. But in the mix of all that, one of the terrorists was about to shoot the pilot, and ends up killing the terrorist with his laser eyes, but completely destroys the dashboard, if you will, where you control all the steering or whatever else. I don't know all the proper terminology, but
all the instruments to even guide the plane down safely.
Exactly right.
It gets destroyed.
It gets destroyed.
So, what the beauty of this scene is to kind of get some of the science of what exactly would happen if you have indestructibility and super strength. It's like you have to stop the plane. How? You have forces going at that amount of speed, and that small pressure going to one part of this train. He's just going to punch through like a toothpick, going all the way through. It's like, I'm not going to do that. What's the whole point? Right. And
Queen Maeve was trying to tell him that you can hold the plane up. He's like, that's impossible. I'm not going to do that. And where we're going to land it in the middle of the ocean? Forget that. And he's walking out and he's lying to everybody. Everything's all right. Don't you worry about it. He's like trying to play it off like it's okay. And everyone's clearly freaking out because they're seeing that the plane is going through some turbulence. And you can see Queen Maeve just like completely in shock. Like, we got to save these people. And he's like, no, everyone stay put where you are. We're going to go in the back real quick and we're going to work on something. And obviously people are freaking out. Like, where are you guys going? Come and save us here. And then as soon as they're all ramping up to him, he's flipping out on them to the point where he's threatening them. I'm going to laser every single last fucking one of you. Sit the fuck down. And that's when you see oh wow, they're really capable of doing this here, and you really see like how evil this guy really is. And again, when you learn about his background, you understand why he's that way. Not that I support it, but you understand that motive for him. And then you wonder, what's he going to do to get themselves out of this here? So he lets the plane crash, and Queen Maeve is obviously clearly hurt by this. And then he pulls off what I have to say was a brilliant performance, which is have the news media around there, and you see all these pieces of the plane, bodies and everything, all around the shore where they crash landed, pretty much. And he's using this as like, you see, if the government allowed us and notified us using their equipment to let us know where their coordinates are, we would have been there to save them in time. So he flipped it and used to say, we're not going to let these terrorists, bring us down. We're here because we're Americans. America's the greatest country. God bless America. That was fucking genius. And I realized, holy shit, this guy's the devil right there. That guy is pure evil. I absolutely
that
love
scene
it.
sent chills down my spine.
Yeah.
I was like, the way he set it up, and then the look on Queen Maeve's face, like, no, I'm done here.
Yeah.
It was just too much to handle. We had the Aussie audience knew what happened. She knew what happened. She was disgusted. Right. It was so well done. And then later on at the tribute, for the fallen of that day, like how that speech, as well, kind of like, you're just lying, like that you're lying, and it was kind of the setup for that was just fantastic. And there was a scene later on, because there's like another scene where kind of like Neil kind of finds out, like, well, he doesn't find it, but he knows about his background pretty much, where they're doing like this reality TV series for the
that was so good.
They're doing this so good. They're doing a reality TV series for the 7th, and it was like the last, because they were kind of going clips between A Train, Homelander, and the Deep, and kind of like what they do. And it's like they're out front of the house and they're shooting him, and he's doing the speech, he's like, Baba, happy go lucky. And there's like a split second when they say cut, and his face completely transforms, like in that split second. Phenomenal. I'm like, that's perfect.
I agree with you 100% on that, man. That was so good, because then you realize when he says it there too, he's like, I never had any of this stuff growing up at all. He said, why do I have to say this stuff? And I forgot the lady's name, Stillwell, played by Elizabeth. No, not Elizabeth Hurley. What's her name? The chick that was in Karate Kid. I forget. Elizabeth Shue. Elizabeth Shue plays Stillwell, who was pretty much running the entire, or running that division of superheroes of the 7th.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she's explaining to him, we need you to do this here, and she gives him the reasons why. He's like, all right, I'll do it. And then, like you just said, he was pretty much like, I played baseball, but I couldn't really show my full strength. But trust me, we won every season, and I've won every trophy, and this is the bed that I've slept in. And there was one thing that really triggered him, which kind of like wanted him, where he was basically refusing to do the show, whereas there was a blanket that he found on his bed, so to speak, and that blanket was from his childhood. And for whatever reason, that triggered him. And then you have a flashback sequence where he's, as a child, holding onto this blanket, and you have one of the scientists who he visits later on in the show is observing him from the other side, and he's by himself in this whole room. So he's got no connection with anybody, and the only thing he's holding on to that's keeping him happy is this blanket. So, you kind of feel for the guy, like, oh shit, this guy had no chance whatsoever. And that sucks, because us, the world, if we're going to have to be under his mercy at this point, which, again, there's a lot more that goes on to the show as well too. And like I said, social commentary was another thing that's prevalent in the show, where not only does he also go out to stop a lot of these terrorist attacks, but he's also creating them as well too. Remember that one scene in particular where they have to stop these group of terrorists to stop them acting on this act here of blowing up something, and he injects one of them with the compound V, and then survives. And he tells the group of army men outside, he's like, guys, don't worry, they're all dead. Go in and do your thing. So he's pretty much setting them up for their own death. And then we have a terrorist who is juiced up on compound V, and he's indestructible now. and he's telling Stillwell, I think his name is Stillwell, I did this for us here. So now there's a reason why we need to be in the with the military, because without that guy, we're not needed. Now we're going to be needed. So he pretty much set all this stuff. He's like the catalyst of the things to come there. So like they're just,
and once they kind of let that out, they kind of let it out that the reason why A-Train was running that day was because he was running V. He was a Compound V, and finding people and injecting a Compound V, and that's why he couldn't stop. So he was doing this like side mission for Homelander, where he was like doing something illegal and setting the story up, and that's fantastic. They loop it all back around. The way that they set that up, the way that they had that set up, and the reason that Huey's girlfriend was murdered was the fact that Homelander was pumping out Compound V, which is just amazingly really well set up.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're leaving out here too, but I can't recommend the show highly enough, because this show really covers in a lot of areas that I think exposes the corruption that I think most people tend to be aware of, as far as like there's no way you can trust these big corporations, and these are the reasons why they're up to something. And the show like this, the fact that we can see that commentary on our society, if you will, that kind of like it really brought me to realize that this is the world that we live in today is not all. It's not a pretty place to believe in, but the fact that we have a show like this to do that for us, to really speak out and really bring those flaws out for us to see, I mean that goes to show you that I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's.
I think I try and pick up the gist of it, because like these are seen as people in power, people of power, with power, and they're using their powers responsibly. On top of that, these people idolize Homelander and some of these heroes without even realizing that they're just as evil, or just as not as good, or just as evil as or worse.
Yeah.
And that's kind of some of the commentators saying, like, as a society, we do idolize certain people and let them get away with a lot worse than a normal person would, just because they're in a place of power.
Right.
And that was kind of summed it up a little bit. And this build up to the story with everything, with the fact that he was kind of behind a lot of stuff that happened, and how he found out was a lot behind him. It was very kind of like you said, it's hard to sympathize with a villain, but at the same time, you understand his motivations of why he's doing what he's doing, which is at the very end, where it's kind of like he found out that yes, he was in a lab and all that, but he found out that okay, so this guy's been chasing me because apparently I killed his wife, or his wife died in labor. Because
you're talking about Bill the Butcher's wife, who was actually found out that she was working at Vought as a marketing firm, or something with regard to the marketing department. And we see a flashback sequence where Homelander clearly is hitting on her, and she's kind of like taking that in. And then you mentioned that that there was rumors that he had killed her. In fact, he had an affair with her, and then we come to find out that she's pregnant with his child. And then
it was he raped her, as you could tell. It was like, even in this, and later on in the series, like you could tell, like, it was one episode, it was like you see Billy kind of watching the tape, because she just stood there after it happened. She just kind of left.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah.
Because she didn't know what to do. And then you kind of find out, Luke, she didn't know what to do, so she went straight to the boss, like, this happened. Homelander did this to me, and now I have a super baby. And there were two stories that were told. Either she died in childbirth, or there was a whatever happened. That's when Homelander knew, okay, there's more than what's really going on. Because after the scene that you said, he tells Stillwell, I orchestrated this. My reason that we have, this villain, because of me, they're actually going to give us a contract. It's what we need. Super after sequel after sequel, there's going to be somebody coming out, and we're going to be the ones taking care of it. We're the ones going to be reaping the benefits. That kind of pushed it to, like, he's a genius, blah, blah, blah. They have that sexual kind of reward, I guess. I guess you awarded him.
Yeah, she's pretty much like his mother in a way. I thought at one point that was his mother.
No, it was like a mother figure type of deal, but it was kind of like there was some tension there. Like there were, I don't know. It was a very weird relationship that they had it set up. So she kind of let it slip. It was because the baby wasn't born. Blah 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 blah.
Right.
Like,
Oh no, she said it was a miscarriage, but the other doctor, the scientist that was there, he told him something else entirely different.
That the baby was born or was in the process of being born, but died because of the process because he clawed himself out. So
right, but then she said Stillwell said she had a miscarriage, but that's not what had happened.
That. So
Right.
that's what he knew. She's like, this after said, no more lies, no more lies.
Yeah.
He goes off the deep end and comes to find out that he went back to the doctors. He told the truth. And that's what sets up the finale, which was Butcher's ready to get his revenge. Butcher finally has Homelander right where he needs him by taking what's going to hurt Homelander the most. Taking Stillwell. So that's Stillwell ready to be, tied up to C4, ready to be kind of like, hey, I have you now. And Homelander comes in like, okay, whatever. And the speech and that interaction was just, it was finally thought to see was built up to like, Butcher's going to get what he, what he's wanted this entire time.
Right.
And she's freaking out. It's kind of like, it was kind of great to say set up because he even calls her out on it. Like, you care more about this baby than you do about me.
Yeah.
No, he's walking around with the baby, and kind of he's going to do something because he's been looking at that baby the entire season. He's been kind of like, I'm going to kill that baby. Like,
he was like jealous, and I was like, "Are you jealous of a baby?"
Jealous of a baby.
Yeah.
So, like, to see that and then kind of finally see the kind of like the payoff for that, and it kind of seemed like kind of call her out on it. So what is it? He kind of lets her know, like, I know what really happened.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't know. Butcher's like, so what is it now? What was your plan? The Homelander's like, telling Butcher, what's your plan now? So you got me now. You got me wanting this all on a hunch. Do you even know that she's really dead or anything? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And Butcher kind of like, it's good enough for me, and just takes him out. Not before Homelander kind of taking out Stillwell. Yeah. Which I did not see coming. It was.
I was kind of expecting that. Me personally, I was kind of expecting that to happen, but I thought there was going to be a chance where maybe something would save her from meeting her death. Right. Once I saw that laser coming, I was like, oh, she's dead. that's when I was like, okay, well, never mind, she's dead. I was concerned more about what's he going to do with the baby, but we never really see what happened to the baby. I can pretty much picture that baby's probably long gone at this point, because you mentioned Bill the Butcher is like, fuck it, I'm gonna just, I got the guy that I need here, and there's no way he can survive this blast. And then obviously he hits the button, and next thing we see, he's over in some lawn, kind of like bruised up a little bit. Homelander's like, hey, you're awake. I'm so glad because we just got here, something like to that effect. And then all of a sudden, we see a little boy come out. Blonde, it looks exactly like Homelander with the blonde hair and the little brown roots coming out. And then we see Bill the Butcher's wife come out. So we come to find out that she's been alive the entire time raising Homelander's kid. As a matter of fact, the kid she'd been dead for what, I think 8 years, as I said in the show. So the kid does not look like he's 8 years. That kid looks like he's fucking like 15 years old. So clearly,
around 10 or 12. But yeah, it's 8 years.
He was up there with. He didn't look 8 years old. I'll put it that way. But anyway, so you come to find out that she's been raising this kid, and then he goes up to the kid. He's like, do you know who I am? He's like, yeah, I know who you are. And then you see, oh my God, this is the part where I was like, holy shit, it's gonna get worse. That's the only way I can see it, because then he tells the kid that I'm your father. And then his mom is back there, and clearly is Bill the Butcher's wife. How has she been alive this entire time, and how has she survived? Just there's a lot of questions, and then clearly Bill the Butcher's like fucking shocked out of his mind, and that's where the show ends. You want to talk about a cliffhanger? Now that is a fucking cliffhanger. I think I'm on issue 11, if I'm not mistaken, with the comic book right now. And you're right. There's a lot of things they kind of just took from different pieces here and there, and they just kind of infused it into this in the first 8 episodes. Holy shit! Now, if they don't get on shooting this shit right now, I don't want to wait. I want to see this stuff come out by next year. I hope it comes up by next year with the right amount of time required to get everything done. because 2021 is way too long. If they want to do it that, if they want to kind of play the game like that. Oh my God, man. Like I said before, man, I think this is by far the best superhero show I've ever seen in my entire life, bar none.
It was really well done. Characters were well done. There were some issues with some of the writing with some of the characters that kind of seemed off for me.
Like who?
Seasons. With Starlight.
Okay.
Kind of some interactions with some of the characters. There, I wanted a little bit more background, but I think because of the new season coming out, that they might just touch upon it on there.
I can see that, yeah. I can definitely see that. One thing though that was not in the show at all that was very prevalent in the comic book was the fact that the boys took in the Compound V themselves so they can be able to fight against the supers. In the show, it's like it's non-existent. Like they're not doing it at all whatsoever. Because I think and I think it's smart that they did that because they wanted to play off like we don't know the consequences of taking these drugs. And when you see them take the Compound V or whatever other drug that they're taking, it's basically heroin for them, or some sort of like speed for them. It's always some sort of ingredient that gives them that edge that they need for their specific needs, which is a depressant drug or a drug that helps them accelerate their speed level. In this case, for A-Train. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we left out here that I thought I would like for us to get into someday. Hopefully, with the next season, we can get into that. But yeah, man, this show I think speaks volumes of the way the world is, and I think it does a great job in commentating on that. What I love about it was the fact that there isn't like these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and the good guys are going to win no matter what. Because even the boys themselves were kind of corrupted in a lot of ways as well too. Although their motives may be very much admired for what they're doing, but the methods in a lot of ways was not the best method. And even some of the heroes who were complete jerks in some areas of their lives, or in their characters rather, in other areas like the Deep, for example, is one of the guys that he's a complete dickhead to women. And he's completely insecure, and he has one of the funniest scenes in the show where he was in Ohio at the supermarket, and he's talking to the lobster, and I remember thinking like, how has no one seen this guy talk to this lobster and not think he's an idiot, But he's talking to his lobster, but you understand his reason for that. He's like, oh, really? You feel sad? Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you out. Not knowing how, if you pick out a lobster from a tank behind the counter and say, I want that guy right there. And then all of a sudden, like the meat cutter guy's like, all right, let me grab him. So he picks him out. And he's got to stab him. And he's like, no, don't do that. And just kills the guy. He didn't think.
He's always having so many comedic moments, and it's kind of like he kind of deserves it, Like I can't help not
at the expense of these animals, and it's one of those like really weird situations where you understand that he's clearly being used and he doesn't like to be used, but he has no way to really stand up for himself in this particular area of his life where he's being used, he's told what to do. And he doesn't know anything else. And when he wants to do the right thing, he's fucking everything up. And to the point where he's killing the very same thing he's trying to save. The dolphin, for example. In this case, the lobster as well, too. And he wants to save them, but no one's taking him serious because the motive for them to save those animals is not going to benefit the company. So, I mean, we can go on and on about that sort of stuff. But, I mean, it's just like that sort of stuff is, like, amazing for the commentary that we have in our society. That being said, though, I want to bring something up here too. Haley Joel Osment in the show. He was only in like 2 episodes.
Two episodes.
Yeah.
Great job.
I forgot. He's done other stuff that I've seen throughout the years as well too. I saw him in Tusk not too long ago with the Kevin Smith film. He is fantastic in that movie. He did another film too that I thought it was really good. It was what was that movie called? Extremely Wicked, the Ted Bundy film that Zac Efron was in, where he plays Ted Bundy. That's on Netflix right now. He was great in that movie. He was only in for like 5 minutes total, but his portrayal of this character that he has in the film was wonderful. So I forget that this guy's a really good actor. What he did with The Sixth Sense and Forrest Gump, among many other roles as well too. AI, for example. Like, I forgot how good this guy really, really was. Because when I saw him, he plays a father in this show, too, who hasn't seen his daughter in like 10 years or whatever. That interaction that he has with his daughter and his emotions that he's bringing up to those scenes, like, I was like, holy shit, this guy's a really good actor. I hope he sticks around for the season. Nope. Nope. He gets his face
I felt
caved
kind
in.
of bad for him.
Yeah.
But he ratted out the boys, and in a way, he got well, in Butcher's eyes, he got what he deserved because
Yeah.
it was like that one redemption. You think that he was going to take it. I know where your wife is, or I can help you with your wife. And Butcher's like, nah. He's like, you can't do this. I'm a father, and just done. Dented his head in on a sink,
And you can see like the face was like rip apart. I was like, holy crap. That's when I realized that, oh, okay, so Bill is very much capable and has no qualms about doing what's necessary, I guess, for his greater good, if you will. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff with this show that I truly, truly love. And like I said, I don't think I can say anything negative about it. I can't think of anything negative for me to say other than the fact that season 2 can't get here much quicker. Seriously. Like, I don't know if they're going to stick close to the source material at this point because they made a lot of changes for this show. I mean, what's your take on that?
It was kind of a slow burn. It was kind of a slow build up.
Yeah.
There were some episodes that kind of like, they probably could have split that up or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the only negative I have to say. I don't recall which one. Because like they kind of quick into kind of jumping to this introducing a new character and not really giving much backstory besides exposition of what happened with the whole lamplighter situation. I was kind of hoping more into that. Besides that, that's probably the only real negative thing I have to say. Maybe some minor character development that I would like to have seen, and maybe some more scenes with some more characters.
Yeah,
especially when they're diving into Popclaw and kind of from some of like her interaction with A-Train.
Yeah.
But besides that, it was a heck of a first season. Like, that's how you do a first season.
Yeah.
And the guys are going to have to up the ante in the second season. I think that they just build it up at that live final episode. That's what they did. So you liked it up till now. Wait till you see what's coming up next. And that was just perfect.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. So I'm hoping that season 2 doesn't have that like sequelitis syndrome where the first one was so good, how can you live up to the second one? So I hope with the source material that we're reading right now, although it's getting really good, they're pretty much filling in the gaps with some of the characters where the boys and the supers in the comics were just kind of like one dimensional in some aspects of the show of the comics. In the show, you're kind of getting a little more background to them and a little more gaps filled in for that. So I hope they continue with that as well too, and whatever direction they take the show at that point. I mean, what else can you think of what could happen? I mean, like, you have his son, Homelander's son now, who I know, no doubt in my mind, I'm thinking he's going to want to raise this kid, and he's going to want to do everything in his power to bring the kid, to have this kid live the life that he never got. Like that mentality that parents would have a lot of times, which is, I'm going to give you things I never had, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure that their kid never suffers. I can see that happening with him, just being like extremely corrupt. But when it comes to his child, what can you do to hurt the child? Nothing, because the child is just as indestructible as he is, if not probably even more. Maybe with the fact he has a human mother for that matter. But like, what can you do at that point to like bring him down? You can't, because this kid is just as powerful as he is, and maybe even more so. And once we learn more about him, so I'm very curious about that.
And it's very kind of cool to kind of see like, how's Butcher gonna handle this?
Yeah,
like, you've been out of my life for 8 years because you've been raising a soup, and especially how he feels about soups, man.
Oh,
it's speaking of which, that kind of weird. How he's trying to prove a point to Huey, don't get involved, because he could see that Huey is really getting into Starlight, and he takes him to that meeting, or like it was like a bunch of people were affected by soups. Like there's one lady who had her like back broke by Tech Knight when she was saved.
Yeah.
Lost
like his meetings.
The guy who lost his member to Ice Princess and whatnot. Man, that speech there was fantastic. He's like, "Where's your anger? Where's your that's kind of like the kind of commentary they're saying, like, you let these people get away with stuff just because they're in power, but they should have never gotten away with it. Where's your anger? He's trying to, I guess, put what he's going through to these other people, but just can't. And he's got trying to tell Huey, like, these soups just see us as less as them, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't realize that, not all of them are the same. So we'll see, man. Second season, I'm hyped for it. I can't wait. The first season was amazing so far. The casting, the actors did an amazing job portraying the characters here.
Speaking of casting, you know who played Huey?
Yes, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan's kid, Jack Quaid. I was watching the show. I was like, he looks so familiar. I hadn't seen him in anything else, at least not to my knowledge. And I'm watching. I was like, he looks like somebody I know. And the way he smiled, I was like, he just looks like someone famous. Like I know I've seen him somewhere. I kept seeing his father. When I found out Jack Quaid, like, why does the last name Quaid sound so familiar? And me, the dumbass, not knowing that right away, I'm looking. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's his kid.
Yeah.
That's Dennis Quaid's kid. Yeah, he looks just like his dad, and you can see a lot of his mom in there as well too, which I thought was kind of amazing to see. But yeah, and you also get Starlight's mother. That's I forgot her name, Ann Cusack. That's John Cusack and Joan Cusack's sister. So you have a Cusack in there, you have a Quaid in there, and of course you got two Star Trek alums in the film series under J.J. Abrams. You have Carl Urban, who plays what's his character's name? Doctor, the guy that he plays in the Star Trek films. What's his name? McLean or something like that. And then of course you got Simon Pegg. So they have a little reunion on the show as well too, which I thought was pretty cool. So, but yeah. Anyways, I thought that was a really nice little fan service, little tip to the hat.
Yeah, it was great, man. There was some fan service throughout the show. It was kind of cool to kind of see and kind of like, oh, well, that's a couple of how some of the superheroes looked and stuff like that, and and just kind of a couple nods to the comic book itself. Like, you have a couple nods to his dog a couple times.
Oh, Terror, is that right?
Terror, yeah, a couple nods to Terror. And a couple nods to a couple storylines that might be coming up. So, all in all, it was a really great series. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it yet, do yourselves a favor. Go see it now. Like, do it now. Binge it. Because you're in for a heck of a ride. Just there are funny tones in there that kind of help it out with some of the heavy stuff. But, and it was kind of like going into it, kind of looking back and kind of going, it's like there's a lot of, yes, it's violent, kind of gory.
Yeah, kind of gory. It's extremely gory. Homelander rips the dude's heart out, like trying to like stop him from sniping out the people in the alley. I mean, it was like, holy shit! It's like there's no holding back. Which I thought. Oh, and another thing that caught me off guard too, which I didn't read the comic at that point, was I think in the first episode or second episode, if I'm not mistaken, where Butcher brings him over to like this club, if you will, where all the superheroes are able to act out on their desires, and like half of them are gay and half of them are just like banging women. There was like a scene where when they walk in, there's two people having sex midair, and I was like, holy shit, what is that? And then you have this one, I forgot the name of the superhero, who's like a Cape for Christ or something like that. I can't remember. It was like some superhero who's like a preacher, and he's talking about like banning gay marriage and being homosexual. Yeah. And then here he is getting blowjobs. He can stretch. He's basically Mr. Fantastic, but he's a gay Mr. Fantastic, and no one near as smart. But he's getting a blowjob from one guy, and then he's stretching over to the other side of the table, sitting with these other two dudes, kissing them while he's getting. I was like, holy crap! They're really not holding back at all whatsoever. Oh man, I was
set up later on in the series. It was later on in the show where he gets blackmailed by Huey, and Huey being improvising as heck. Come on. I can't believe you said that line.
And I'm going to tell her about it. We got it on tape, and I'll put it on every social media account we have. And I was like, wow, he's really going.
Great. And that line he says, I don't know how he says it with a straight face. He's like, you played me like jazz.
Oh my god, it was fucking hilarious.
Lost it.
You know what? I was gonna watch that because I didn't know, because I knew of them of the comics, but I just didn't know much about it other than the Simon Pegg resemblance, and that's all I really knew about it. So my son and I just got done watching Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, which was also Amazon Prime series. We just got done watching that. Fantastic show. And we're like, what? I asked, what else do you want to watch? Because we're on Amazon. He was like, I don't know. I was like, how about The Boys? He's like, I don't want to see that show. I was like, why? Because they keep promoting that show all the time on YouTube. I'm sick of that show. I have no interest in seeing whatsoever. I was like, it might be really good. Come on, maybe at least watch the first episode, and then you can decide. He's like, nah, I'm not interested. All right, well, I'm gonna watch it tonight. Goes in his room, and I'm watching. And that was the first episode where you see like that superhero orgy, and there's like gay sex, and then like body parts flying all over the place. And I was like, yeah, it's a good thing I'm not letting my kid watch this show right now because, yeah. And then I'm reading the comics as well too, and it's just as graphic. It's not more graphic from what we see in the show. So overall, okay, we know our thoughts on a thumbs up, thumbs down, in the middle. I think we already know the answers here. Thumbs up.
2 cheers. Yeah, 2 cheers for me, man. Do yourselves a favor, go watch it. Look up the comic book if you want to. Kind of see some of the contrast between the two mediums. Fantastic job, and I can't wait to see what Amazon has coming next.
Oh man, so do I, man. But yeah. All right, well, if this is the first time you're watching us on YouTube here, please be sure to subscribe and also follow New Release Wednesdays on social media. We have on Twitter.
Spell down here.
Yep.
You should have something up here. And then, just click the like and bell right down here somewhere. So,
So follow us on Twitter at DNRW and then on Twitter and Instagram, New Release Wednesdays. And you can follow me on Twitter at RobMedina0585 and on Instagram, Rob_Medina0585. And for David?
You could follow me at David is Disaster either on Twitter or on Instagram. So follow us there. We have other projects that we're working on. Me and Robin, Robin Movie Guy here, usually talk, everything pop culture. And also check out us here and the rest of the NRW crew here on either on YouTube or other social media.
Cool. Other than that, guys, you guys have yourself a fantastic day and cheers.
Cheers.